Hi everybody, welcome to the dungeon. My name is Robin and today is Flameworking, the Halloween Holiday Special. About a year ago, the Virginia Firebirds asked me to do a demonstration for them and to be their October artist. And I did the Magic Cauldron for them, and that included all sorts of fun stuff like pumpkins, bones, the cauldron, a stump to put it on, and so it made a really nice scene. This year I decided to expand upon that theme and make a little tabletop tombstone. And you know, it is a little bit more complex, but you can simplify any part of this demonstration. So if this isn't something that is maybe up your alley, then hopefully you'll still get some good information and some inspiration from this fun demonstration. All right, with that said, let's go ahead and get right into it. I hope you make it to the end because it is a little bit lengthy, but it is a lot of fun. And of course, as always, thank you all so much for joining me. I truly appreciate it. And on that note, happy Halloween, and I'll see you next time in the dungeon. Okay, here's what I'm going to be using today. This is a bundle of 3 ivories and 1 ebony ivory. And here is a stringer that I will show you how to pull out in just a minute. And you also want various sizes of black stringer. That's going to be really helpful for your design work. And then I have the bundle that I'm going to use for the landscape. There's just a couple of browns, an ivory, a bit of silver number 2. And then for the bottom part of the landscape, I have some iris orange frit, small frit. And then on the top of the landscape, I just have a various mix of frits. There's a whole bunch of different colors in there. Oh, and don't forget, you're going to want rubber bands to bundle your bundles with. And you are also going to need a couple of different various sizes of metal punties. And that is what we're going to use to make our tabletop tombstone. All right, so we are going to go ahead and get started by making a stringer from the bundle. And when you do this, you always, anytime you heat up a bundle like this, you always want to start out really slow, very gently, just with, just have it facing one of the canes. And then you're going to start pushing those canes inward so they all are touching. And as soon as they're all touching, then you can easily start to heat up the bundle. And any air inside will go down. So don't worry about getting bubbles in here. And when you have enough, like right here, I don't need a whole bunch, so I just want to pull out a stringer to use later on to do some decoration on the tombstone with. Of course, everything I do here is optional. You can always play with the colors and figure out what you like the best. But this is what I'm going to use today, and that is our stringer. All right, so now we're ready to start the landscape. Once we have all of the stringers pulled, then we can begin. So the landscape is comprised of a red rock brown, a light brown, a dark brown, an ivory rod, and a silver number 2 effetry rod that looks great with any shade of brown. So again, I'm going to start just heating up the top parts of these rods and pushing them together so everything just kind of sticks together at the top, and it makes just everything so much nicer to melt down. And I'm going to start to heat everything up real good and melt it down. It does take a good, this whole section can take a good 5-6 minutes to make. So take your time. And this top part, I'll start to kind of play with a little bit because the top part that you see is going to be the top part of the landscape. So I want there to be some interest there. So have fun with this, push it around, make it interesting looking. And then you're going to start to just kind of press that in a little bit. And when you like what you see on the top, I will go ahead and punchy it up and start to heat off this bundle of cane. It does take time heating all of this up, but once you do, you have a nice big ball of glass on the end of your puntee. So I just want to start heating the bottom up so I can get a little bit of this iris orange frit on the bottom. I just like it. There's no real rhyme or reason. I just like the way it looks, but you can make yours any way you want. If you don't have the frit, don't worry about it. You don't have to have it on there. So it's just whatever makes you happy. That's what I want you to do. All right, so I'm just heating up around the edges here, and I have my mini mashers, and I want to start making this landscape bigger however I can. And for me, it's just a matter of, ooh, what's the hottest? I'm gonna start squeezing it down and just making everything a little bit bigger. I don't want to smooth it out though. I want a nice kind of rocky looking surface on top. I'll get a little bit more heat on the bottom and a little bit of heat on the top, and just give it one more good squeeze all the way around. And you can see how it's moving on the punty here. It's kind of like all over the place, so do your best to keep it on that punty. All right, now what I want to do is I'm thinking about puntying this up so I can add some frit to the top side. So I'm going to heat up my other punty and get it really red hot, and then I'm going to start to kind of push it into the bottom of that glass. So I'm really kind of making the punty do all the work there. And then I'm going to heat up the other side, and be real careful. I'm heating up mainly the punty, again, more than I am the glass. And that will help you to keep everything in control. Okay, I'm going to heat the top up real good and just add a whole bunch of frit to the top. This is a mix I've had going, and it's been changing for a while. So whatever you have laying around, that's kind of how I make my frit mix. Again, this is another optional thing. You don't have to do it this way, but it's just kind of fun to see all these different colors and what they do. I kind of feel like they got muddied at the end, but in the context of being a tombstone, it worked out great. So at this point, I want to make it a little bit bigger. I want to make sure that this is wide enough to hold a tombstone on. And I have all my little tombstones around me over there, so that kind of helps me to size everything up. You don't have to do the landscape. You can just focus on the tombstone. So I'm just going to heat everything up and just give it a little bit more of a tug and a pull here and there, just to widen everything a little bit more. I always like to push myself on these landscapes and, just try to get them a real crazy shape. All right, I just want to straighten it up on that punty one more time, heat the frit in a little bit more, and just give everything an overall heat before I put it away. And I want you to pay attention to how I put this away and where I put it away. I'm going to put this away in my annealer right at the front of the door, so the punty does not overheat when I go to reach for it again. Just be careful that it doesn't fall out of the annealer. I just went, and I don't even open the annealer. I just grab it and lift the annealer using the punty and just pull it out and hope for the best. But that's kind of what I have to do when I make all this stuff. I don't have a textbook. I just kind of start playing. And that's what we're going to do here. We're going to play around with the ivory bundle now. And when you make the tombstone and you have this extra stick of the ebony ivory in there, want to make sure that you get that surrounding the tombstone to keep it on the outside. Now, do be careful not to get too close to the rubber bands. They do catch on fire and they do smell horrible. And they leave an awful residue too. So if you have a hair tie, that can help. Sometimes some people like to use a twisted bit of metal wire. That works too. All right, once I have a nice big, I have about the size of my marble mold, which is about 1 inch. I'm going to go ahead and take that bundle off before anything starts getting crazy with those rubber bands. And I'm going to start heating and pushing into that marble mold just to round everything out. All right, now I'm ready to heat it up and start to press it into the tombstone shape. And this is, again, on all of this, get creative. It doesn't have to be like your basic, cartoon tombstone shape, but I just kind of prefer that because then it gives me a nice blank slate to do all the fun and decorative stuff all over it. Okay, so you notice that I press that down with a slight taper. That's important because right now what I want to do is start to heat everything up and use gravity to lengthen the tombstone. So I'm getting that length right now. And as soon as things start to get a little too hot, I'll bring it down and start to pull in those edges and press it down again. And this becomes the bottom of the tombstone. So that area right there that was tapered, we're going to heat that up and push it back in and pop that bubble and flatten it out, and that will give you a really nice base for your tombstone. All right, now that we're ready, we're going to flip this around again. So I'm going to heat the punty and a little bit of the glass, punty that up. Be careful not to push the punties in too deep. You really only need to just be touching it. The one thing you need to be aware of is don't let it get cold. Don't let this cool down too much because we're gonna be doing a lot of work on this, and you want to keep heating everything up and keep it warm while you're working on your decoration. So here I'm just heating and pressing and shaping it up into my shape, and just using the graphite paddle to get close to my shape. And then when I'm ready, I'll flatten it one more time, and now we're ready to put on our decoration. All right, I'm going to start out with a whole bunch of different sizes of black stringers, and I like to work kind of on the thicker side. And I will heat where I want to put the number down, and then I'll start with the number 1, real simple, and put my 1 down, and then I will heat it up and use my knife that has a little pointed edge on it, which I love. That really comes in handy. And I'll heat it and I'll push it where I need to, and then I'll do a final heating and a final pressing. And the pressing really helps it to hold a little bit better onto the background. Now move on to the number 9, and I'm already seeing that I put my 1 too close in to the numbers, so I have to cut my my numbers a little short. I got to figure something out, which is usually what happens to me. I just fly by the seat of my pants a lot when I flame work. So I'll put an 11 in here, and that will make everything a lot easier to see, and there's just not a lot of room. So I should have started a little bit further out. Just something to think about for the next time. And then, like always, you'll see me heating it and moving it however I can, whether I need to push it with my knife or pull a little bit out with a stringer or push in a little, area here or there, and then I will always heat it and press it. All right, so now that I'm done with my date, I heated everything up, and now I'm ready to add a little bit of scrolling decoration here and there. It was a little difficult for me this day. I was feeling shaky, but I made it work. All right, so I just want to press down everything and just kind of push it where I want it to go. And then I always want to continue heating everything up, kind of in between each step that you do or each line that you lay down. You really want to give that bead a lot of heat, or not the bead. I'm so used to making beads. Give the glass as much heat as you can without, messing with it, getting it molten. All right, so I'll heat here and I'll just press down where I want to, and then another bit of heat, and I thought I would finish this side off with a trio of dots. And that'll make for side one of our tabletop tombstone. All right, now before I move on, I want to give this a really, really good heat. This is so important. If anything really ever goes wrong and things start popping and breaking, it's because you're not heating it and keeping it warm long enough. And you're letting it cool down. And a lot of times it's because you're so busy working on something else that by the time you get back to this type of heat here, it'll shock it. But if you just stick with it and be real patient and heat everything up real nice before you do each step, you should be able to make one of these without a problem. Okay, so on side 2, I'm going to put the RIP. And I'll just start out. It's fun to, play around with the stringer and make designs and kind of feel like you're drawing with it and writing with it. It does take time to figure out exactly where you want the stringer as opposed to where the flame is, because you don't want it right in the flame. You're really putting your stringer on right next to the flame. But every torch is slightly different on where exactly that spot is for you to lay your stringer down and do your stringer work. So these are always fun to just play around with and practice on. Okay, almost done with the lettering here. And I think that P just looked horrible, so I'm going to spend a few seconds to just kind of straighten it up. And like I said, I like the knife that I'm using because it has I can flatten things, I can push things around, I can get into little areas. It's just really helpful to have around, and I don't have to worry about putting a tool down and grabbing another tool and putting a tool down and grabbing another tool. All right, lots of heating again, and I'm going to continue to work on this. I'm going to put a heart on here, and so I'm going to add a dot and just swipe it towards an inner angle a little bit, and then I'll do the opposite with another dot. Just heat it and swipe it towards the previous dot, and then I'll heat the center and just pull down that little tail a little bit, and then give it a heat and a press and move on. Lots of heat, always in between, lots of heat. Now you can use different size stringers for more variation on your pattern. Or you could add, different patterns like flowers or some foliage would look really nice. Whatever you want to do with these, it's all up to you. And that's what I love about these little tombstones. All right, another little curl on the other side to finish that top part off. And just another really good heat. I must have been getting tired at this point because I realized after I watched this, because I like to sometimes review things that happen. And as I am doing this, I am, for some reason, not doing my final step, which is pressing down. I just totally, didn't do it. So you'll see the consequences of that in a minute. So I just want to play around with that little bit and just twist a little kind of floret in there. And now at this point, I'm just going to heat everything up and start to put the outline on here. And you can do this however you want. You can put 2 outlines. You can make this a lot thicker too if you want. So I'm just adding my ebony ivory cane. And sometimes, not everything goes as planned. So if things tend to break like this, then just take a deep breath and, reheat where the broken end is and just continue from there. And now that I have the outline on, I want to heat it in real good. And then I will be ready to start to add the top part. And my whole intention was to make a cross up there, but things just didn't work out, as you can see in just a minute. So I heat up my black glass, and I just want to keep everything kind of roasting in the back like a marshmallow. And then I will go ahead and add a nice big, I'll do this several times, but I'll add a nice big amount to the top. And I immediately noticed right there, I lost a little bit of my curl. So I was not flattening, I didn't flatten that bit down. So that's what happens. You always want to make sure you flatten down your pattern. So I need to go ahead and add that back to it. And I don't know why. I don't think I ended up flattening that. I think I just got nervous and wanted to finish up real quick. I'm sure you have all been there. So I just want to keep my tombstone hot, and I do add quite a bit of black glass here to get a ball. I ended up feeling like I needed to start to finish things up. So instead of making a cross, I put a nice ball on the top, and that is where the crow or the raven will sit. Now I'm heating up the bottom, and you can see it's actually moving on that punty, and I like to do that so that when I punty up the other side, the part that I want to take off comes off easier. So I'm going to take that punty off, and this is where things get critical. Okay, so I turn my torch up, and while I am heating up the tombstone in the back, I will grab the punty rod with my left hand and pull that bit of landscape out of the annealer and put it right into the flame and start heating up the top and a little bit of the bottom. I don't want to overheat it, especially at the bottom, but I don't want it to break either. So what I'm accomplishing here is I'm trying to heat the landscape up a lot more than the tombstone. You want to have a hot landscape and a cold or a warm tombstone. I hope you know what I mean here. And then, the top came off real quick for me. So at this point, I just wanted to take it off the rod, and it seemed to want to just pop right off of the rod on its own. And when this happens, you kind of know that it's time. It's time. And I was happy with what I had. So very quickly, I'm going to heat up my mini mashers and heat the bottom up real well until the punty comes off. I probably should have used tweezers there. And then I will just press it real quickly on my marvering table and put it in the oven on a soft or a hard fire brick. All right, that was exciting. Okay, so if you're ready to go a step further, I am going to make a raven to go on top of the tombstone. I felt bad that I didn't make a cross on top, but things just started getting crazy, and sometimes the glass will tell you what it wants to do. And that one wanted to be done. So we are going to make a little raven to go on top, and I don't make birds all the time, and every time I do it seems to be for a different reason, so they all end up looking different, and I make them all different. So I pretty much just start out with a blob of glass that has kind of a curve, a slight kind of off center curve to the top, and that really comes from nothing more than just adding the glass here and heating it. As you can see, it's not really forming a ball. I'm just waiting for it to soften up, and I'm like, okay, I can see the bottom is a little bit heavier than the top. And now I will kind of figure out where I want the sides of the bird to be. And then I'll just kind of squeeze that together with my mini mashers. Now, after I have kind of figured out the body part, I want to start adding the neck area very small. I would rather add a smaller here than a big glob, just because it'll make it easier for me to kind of see what I want this to be. So I'll add a little bit more and a little bit more, and I think that's going to be okay. I've established the head, and now I just want to get a little neck area going here, and I just use a punty to kind of push that around. And once I feel comfortable and I'm happy with the body and how it's positioned, I will go ahead and add the head and just make that a little bit bigger. And then I'll get it kind of rounded out and get it a nice smooth transition into the body. And the head is a little on the big side, but that's kind of how I am with my birds. They are not perfect. They're more cartoony than anything. Either way, the next step you want to do is add your wings. So I'm going to add a wing on both sides by getting a little bit of glass hot, a little ball of glass, and pushing and swiping in the direction I want the wing to go. And if you didn't get it on the first try, then you can go ahead and do what I'm doing here and just do your best to push the glass where you need it to go and to pull the wings out and just to be happy with where you are. And you know, you just want it to look like a bird. It doesn't have to be perfect. And I'm going to add some glass to the head and start to kind of get a beak going there. And then I don't know what was happening, but I got it too hot and melted it in. So I just did that again. I just heated that area up and pulled it out into what is going to be the beak. So from there, I'm going to add some eyes on here, and I'm using a very thin graphite tube. And I just had it laying around and I thought it would work, and it looked good. It looked good. So I used that for the eyes. And then I just wanted to shape the head up. You know, pretty much you kind of work on these until you're happy with what you have. And that's what I did here. I just kind of, you know, straightened everything up, pulled everything in, all really using this butter knife, and until I was happy with what I had. Or close to happy. All right, so now I'm ready to put my punty on because I want to work on the tail side. And I'm using a boro rod. I just heated the end up real nice and then stuck it right to the head. It should come off just fine later on as long as you don't overheat it here. You know, you just stick it on and then work on the bottom half. You don't have to really be adding too much heat to the top area because it's being warmed by the glass underneath it. So I wasn't quite happy with the wings, and this is really your last chance to work on them. So I just used my butter knife to kind of shape and push the wings a little bit closer to the body. And then I'll take the time to add a couple of little feather, lines in there with my X-Acto blade. And from there, I will start to add the tail on. And instead of adding a big ball of glass onto it with a regular size rod, I'd rather build it up with a stringer. It just makes it easier to get into that little area. All right, so heat that up into a ball and then wait for it to cool down a minute before you start grabbing it. And when you do, be really gentle when you pull that out. You're not making it really long, you're just tugging on it. And then when you need to, I just pulled it down to get it going in the area I wanted it to. So I want the tail to be going down. And I like the way that looks, at least so far. I'm going to play around with the wings here, and then maybe the beak as well. But either way, I'm getting close to what I like. And I will be honest, I made this probably 3 times. Each time something happened, it would break. I didn't like it, so it doesn't have to, don't feel like, this is going to happen all at once, like you're going to sit down and make this thing. So it might take you a couple of practice sessions to kind of work out what you have in mind for the object that you're making. So a little bit of tweaking on the beak there at the end, and I'll give it a final, just gentle heat. Heat up my tweezers, and I'm going to break it right off on my torch. And if the punchy comes off, then just fire polish the top and put it away. If it doesn't come off, then try to break it off and then fire polish it and put it away. Oh my gosh, we're finished, or at least we're almost finished. I want to glue these little guys together. So what I've done is I have used a diamond drill bit and just smoothed out 2 surfaces that I wanted to meet. And I'm using a UV resin. It's a UV glue that I got on Amazon. It's relatively inexpensive, and all you need is the ultraviolet light. And this is a high power one, and it's great because it allows me to really get into the detailed areas that I need. And you can find all this, I'm pretty sure, on Amazon. but look for a good light. That makes all the difference. So all you need to do really is add a little bit of glue and carefully put your pieces together exactly how you want, because this glue with under the light, you can see it holds almost instantly. So I just sat under and moved that light around for about a minute, and now I can pick it right up, and it is stronger than the glass itself. So it's so cool. Anyway, here is our finished tabletop tombstone. I hope you guys enjoy. Happy Halloween, and I hope to see you guys next time in the dungeon.